Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. The FBI, we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism.
So we are still learning a lot about the ISIS-inspired terrorist attack that took place yesterday in New Orleans. But what we can already say safely is that the FBI has completely humiliated itself in this process. They are contradicting themselves. They're creating a huge PR nightmare. They do not want to seem to be all that transparent with the American public. And I want to hone in today on the press conference that they did yesterday morning that was just a complete embarrassment and a disaster, specifically because of this one person right here, FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Aletha Duncan, who a lot of conservatives out there are referring to as a DEI hire. I'm not going to get into that and speculate. What I will say objectively is, yes, she created a huge publicity problem for the Bureau yesterday for a number of reasons. First of all, she was wearing a nose ring in the press conference, which is not that big a deal in itself, except we should point out that is actually prohibited by FBI rules. And then later in the day, in the second press conference, she took off the nose ring, so already pretty sloppy, but honestly, that's a little bit petty. Who deeply cares about that? What I do want to point out, however, is the fact that this first press conference yesterday took place at about 9:33 a.m. By now, the FBI had already photographed the fact that there was an ISIS flag in the back of that attacker's truck. Everyone could clearly see that it was a terrorist attack. And yet this person right here, this FBI assistant special agent, whatever, went out and said that what happened in New Orleans was not a terrorist attack. How could that be? Well, here's what she had to say, and then we'll show you why the contradiction here, even by the New Orleans mayor herself, created a complete embarrassment for the FBI. So check it out.
This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on. Our goal is to provide you additional information at the 11 a.m. press conference. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Yes, I will say that we want our community and our visitors to continue enjoying. There's so much to enjoy about New Orleans, and we are going to make sure that our routes in the Superdome are safe today for the game. And yet we had this tragic event, and we're sorry again to everyone in our community. But we do want you to go about the day, as we say, just stay away from Bourbon, okay?
Yeah, so yesterday morning, they're saying this is not a terrorist event, while the FBI had already photographed an ISIS flag in the truck. So why exactly were they so coy to come out and say that this was a terrorist attack when it was obvious? Because it seems to me that whenever the suspect is a straight white male, that's not an issue, but whatever. Okay, I'm not even going to get into that, okay? Because I don't even think that's the biggest aspect of the FBI humiliating itself here. I think the worst part is that in this very same exact press conference, the mayor of New Orleans came out and said that, yes, it was a terrorist attack, which makes the whole thing even stranger. We'll show you that in a second. First, folks, do us a big favor. If you appreciate the coverage that we are bringing you, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. You subscribing is the #1 way to ensure we can keep bringing you this work. It's also totally free. Greatly appreciated if you would hit that red button. But with that said, okay, someone might go around and think to themselves, well, maybe they just don't want to call it a terrorist attack because it was early and they didn't want to, rush to conclusions. And I could buy that excuse if not for the fact that, again, at this same press conference, the mayor of New Orleans is already saying it was a terrorist attack, which seems to imply the FBI told her that, but they just didn't want to tell it to the public. For some strange reason, take a listen.
Good morning. First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to...
It's just ridiculous, right? At the same exact press conference. It is a terrorist attack. It's not a terrorist attack. Okay, which one is it? What's going on? Again, complete and total embarrassment for the Bureau. And I want to say this right now. A lot of people are going to make points about, diversity hiring or this or that. But I think the biggest discussion about the FBI that is most relevant to the fact that, again, an ISIS-inspired terrorist attack just became one of the largest terrorist attacks in the United States since 9/11 is that we should, guys, remember to ourselves what the FBI has spent the past several years focusing on instead of, as you could clearly see, the obvious threats to our country. And again, that's why I say it goes a little deeper than the DEI hiring, because what has the FBI's priorities been since Joe Biden took office? Well, let's remember that for ourselves.
Perverted world that we're living in, the criminals are actually the victims. So who are the criminals? Well, obviously, sincere Christians. They're the real problems. Sincere Christians in the middle class, boy, they're dangerous. And the FBI, it's hard to believe this, doubtless there are decent FBI agents, but the FBI as an organization has joined in the hunt for Christians, and we have proof of it. The FBI tried to manufacture crimes against sincere Catholics. The FBI's Richmond field office recently published an internal document promising to punish, quote, radical traditionalist Catholics and their ideology. Now, just to make something completely clear, the Bill of Rights prohibits the government from weighing in on sectarian or religious questions. They don't get to decide whether your religion is good or bad. They have to be agnostic on it. But the FBI has decided if you're too sincere about Catholicism, you're a criminal.
Right. And I think that's the biggest part about the FBI in this discussion that we are missing. Okay. Now, obviously, we can't say for certain whether a better bureau could have prevented this terrorist attack or a different one or whatever, because sometimes things happen that were too hard to detect or impossible to stop. But what I can say for certain is it's objectively true, especially after seeing this, but we knew it before, that the FBI's priorities were completely in the wrong place. We had serious terrorist threats to our country, many of which were coming across the southern border that Joe Biden left open. And what has the FBI spent the past several years focusing on? They are treating as terrorists, not the terrorists themselves, but Trump supporters, Christians, moms who are protesting against the school boards. This is how it is going. I think this headline right here sums it up so perfectly. Democrats weaponized FBI to falsely claim that white supremacists posed a greater terror threat than radical Islamists. We remember that whole narrative. We remember that whole story. And let me just say, it doesn't seem like it has aged all that well, has it?
Terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
Yeah. So President Biden, how exactly is that working out right now? As this terrorist, as everyone knows, had an ISIS flag in the back of his truck, and I don't think exactly was a member of the KKK. So here's the thing, is that going forward, now that Trump is coming into office, now that Kash Patel is going to be the FBI director, it is time finally to have a serious FBI that, as you can see, is spending its time, its money, its resources on the serious terror threats to our country, not being politically weaponized to simply punish those who are conservative or that the regime itself disagrees with. Shouldn't be that hard. Because a couple of things here are already obviously true. Number one, the FBI has serious issues internally when it comes to sheer competence. And you saw that in the press conference. But number two, and arguably much more importantly, their priorities, their resources are being misdirected not to the actual threats against this country, but to apparently the white supremacists, to the people who are going to church, to the people who are voting for Trump or protesting against abortion or just don't like weird, crazy sexual things being taught to their children, and they're telling that to the school board meetings. Just saying. Okay, just saying. So with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. What do you think about the current state of the FBI? How fast do you think Kash Patel will be able to clean this up? And are there serious problems with the national security infrastructure in our country? Because on one hand, they are blatantly violating the constitutional rights of Americans. But then on the other hand, okay, the trade-off is what? They're not even keeping us safe. It's literally the worst of both worlds. So let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, guys. Subscribe if you are new. Stay safe out there. And until next time, God bless and peace.